Hey guys, this is Chad Hennings and welcome to Wingmen Conversations. This is going to be a program where we bring on a wingman, a guy just like you, that gives him an opportunity to share his testimony and to learn some of the amazing things that they're doing in the kingdom today. And the purpose of this is to maybe motivate you guys and to motivate other guys that are out there that hear the testimony and say, hey, that's, I can relate to that. But then also to see what they're doing in the kingdom that, hey, I want to get involved or I want to be a part of that and I can do something just like that. So guys, I hope you enjoy the program. Be right back with you. Hey guys, again, Chad Hennings with my good friend Tyler Frisbie. Tyler, thank you for being our first guest on Wingman Conversations. Let's get right to it. How did you hear about Wingman and what initially drew you to, maybe I got to go check this stuff out and see what these guys are all about?
Yeah, no, great question. I heard about Wingmen much like most other guys through another Wingman. Somebody reached out to me, actually two different guys, Eric Jacobson and Steve Newowner were the two guys that introduced me to Wingmen.
That's awesome. And what Wingman corporate group do you attend?
The McKinney group.
McKinney guys, how long have you been with them? Since the inception?
Since the inception, so that we're going on year 2 right now.
I've heard your testimony in the past, and, it's a great testimony of redemption and grace. Maybe you'd like just to share what you want with the guys to kind of give them an opportunity to learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that, Chad. So I was born and raised here in the Dallas area in a Christian family. I was the youngest of 4 kids. Had great parents who are still together to this day with my dad passing here recently, so my mom is still with us. But grew up in North Dallas and started out at Trinity Christian Academy in Addison, and found out early on that I was highly dyslexic. And so I didn't stay at TCA that long because back then they didn't have a program for kids with learning differences, and so I went to the Shelton School and was there for all the way up through high school, and then transitioned into Bishop Lynch in East Dallas, where I really went there for 2 reasons. One, they had a good learning difference program, but also basketball was a huge passion of mine, and I was very, very athletic and into hoops back in the day. So went to BL, and it was quite a experience for me. I really, once I got there, determined I didn't really care much for academics, and I really only wanted to focus on basketball and girls. And so, I became a Christian. I should back up a little bit. I became a Christian at a very young age, but in fact, I remember it vividly with my mom sitting on the side of my bed one night, and we prayed together. I was in first grade at the time, and we went to a great Bible church here in the Dallas area, and involved in a pretty good youth group, quite honestly. But I had a different life, and I hid that from a lot of guys, peers of mine, and so over time developed bad habits. Started with pornography at a young age, and so here I am in high school, and I'm just doing my own thing. And it wasn't too long into my high school experience, I was 16 years old at the time, that I started dating my oldest sister's best friend, who was actually she was a freshman in college at the time. She was going to UTD, playing soccer, smoking hot, and here I am, this 16-year-old kid, thinking that I have arrived. All my buddies were very jealous, and so one night I was talking to her on the phone, and I could tell something was off, and I kept kind of prodding and asking, what's wrong, and she wasn't really opening up, and finally she said, "Tyler, I'm pregnant." and I have $500 under my mattress, and tomorrow morning your sister is going to take me to get an abortion. So I was immediately humbled, shocked. I didn't know what to do. I literally remember dropping to my knees at the side of my bed with the phone to my ear, and just out of just pure shock, and really crying out to God and asking for forgiveness, and realizing that I didn't have it all figured out. And so Heather and I started, talking more, obviously, on the phone that night, and I just felt a strong conviction in my heart that that wasn't the best option to move forward with, and expressed that to her, and we prayed about it together on the phone that night, and we ultimately made the decision to face the situation and not proceed with the abortion. And so that's when the journey really began. Here I am, a 16-year-old young man, and never had a job before, and I'm in this situation. And so, but we faced it by the grace of God, and to Him all the glory. And so the number one person, though, that I was most fearful in telling was my dad, because I loved him so much, and I didn't want to let him down. And also, he went to West Point. My grandfather went to West Point, and so he was pretty strict growing up, and at times he struggled with his anger. Although he got better with age, he definitely had mellowed out over the years. And so, but I was fortunate at the time, or at least so I thought, that he and my mom were in the process of taking my other sister to Emory College in Atlanta at the time, and so I could break the news to him over the phone. And didn't have to go face to face with him. And this was before cell phones. This was in '96, and so I remember calling my parents' hotel room that night, them being in Atlanta, and my mom answered, and I said, "Mom, I need to talk to Dad." I just went, and she said, "Okay," and handed the phone to my dad, and he told me two things that completely shocked me, was not anticipating, and the two things he told me was, number one, he said, "Son, I love you," and number two, he said, "We'll get through this." And that's all that he said.
Wow.
So I was just really blown away by that, and actually felt encouraged by that, with my dad knowing that he had my back. Felt very fortunate and blessed in that regard, because a lot of folks in that type of a situation don't have that, I realize, or didn't have that. So my wife had a different experience. She was the oldest daughter of three daughters, and so she was the example child, first one in college, and her parents had a little bit of a different reaction. Their dad in particular was very upset, and me being a father of two daughters now, I can fully understand or sympathize with maybe what he was feeling at the time. And so, I wasn't allowed around their house for several months after the news. He said if I stepped foot on his property, he was going to blow my head off with a shotgun. Remember that vividly. And so it was an intense time, and it took time, because he had to see that I wasn't just going to skip town or leave his daughter high and dry. And so I kept pursuing and trying to do anything I could to earn his favor and respect. And eventually he let me start coming around the house, which was great. And when he saw that I wasn't just going to abandon his daughter, so my wife, or my girlfriend at the time, Heather, she lived at her house with her parents. I lived at my house with my parents during her pregnancy. And we didn't want to get married just because she got pregnant. We didn't feel like that was the right thing to do, but what we did want to do was start counseling and just kind of working through some of the issues. And so we did that through DTS. We started going to counseling. My father-in-law was actually taking some master's classes there at the time, and so we partnered with one of his professors at DTS, and he walked us through a 9-10 month program.
Now, for you as a young man, and still in high school at the time, right? Struggling with a lot of those feelings of shame, of frustration, not wanting to disappoint others. What's my future hold? God, where are you? Granted, we make the mistakes, but being held accountable to that sin. And you talked about going to couples counseling. Aside from your father, or was your father the main influence? Who did you have around you that discipled you personally as a young man to what it meant? Okay, now you have these upper responsibilities, and to help you walk through that period of time.
Great question. So my dad actually helped with that because he saw that need in my life as a young man. He knew that other guys needed to get involved, and so he said, "Son, I scheduled a breakfast with a guy in Louisville, and just trust me. We're going to go meet with him, but he's going to help us work through this situation." So I was like, all right, Dad. I didn't know what to expect. I just trusted him and went along with it. And so the next morning, we show up to Grandy's in Louisville. They're off of 35, and we walk in, and there's Steve Farrar sitting over in a booth. And you know Steve well, obviously, Chad.
And
so
a lot of the Wingmen know Steve, who speaks regularly at Wingmen.
So my dad was a big networker, and so he found Steve, and so we had breakfast together, the three of us. And right at that time, or shortly before that, Steve had written Point Man, and Steve was very encouraging. I remember that day. And so basically, the Point Man book was the model that I used with three other guys at Northwest Bible Church at the time. That we kind of walk through separately for me individually, and learning how to be a man and what a godly man looks like. And so that was really my first hands-on exposure to doing that.
So you were on a crash course of what it, skipping several stages to become a man, not instantaneously your father. Now, to kind of, not to push you along, but to wrap things up, how does the story end?
Yeah, great question. So now we live in McKinney, Texas, and a little while ago, about a year ago exactly, I was asked to be on the board of the Hope Women's Center in McKinney.
Even before you get to that,
your
wife has the baby.
Oh,
how does
yes.
That story
I'm sorry.
How does that
That's an important
end?
detail. Right, of course. So we went through the counseling. It was great. I ended up graduating high school a year early. I was 17 when I graduated high school. Graduated on a Friday. Got married the very next day on a Saturday. Our daughter was 6 months old at the time. We went on a 9-day honeymoon, came back, and I started working full-time during the day, going to night school at night, community college, started a lawn business on the side, so it was 2 jobs. Took me 7.5 years to get my college degree. Had a second daughter during that time as well. So now our oldest is a senior in college. She goes to Dallas Baptist University. Praise God, she's doing awesome. And our younger daughter is a junior this year at McKinney Christian Academy in McKinney.
That's outstanding. And I know discipleship, because of what you experienced, your father and those Steve Farrar and the other men seeded a lot of wisdom and a lot of truth in your life to help you walk through that very challenging and difficult time. And I know that, so discipleship is important. How have you recently also been reaching out to other young men that are going through similar circumstances and helping them walk through?
Great question, and that's where we get back to the Hope Women's Center. So I joined the board last October, and one of the former board members had a vision for a men's ministry out of the Hope Women's Center, and we talked about calling it Men of Hope, but we didn't really know what that looked like or what that should look like, and so we prayed about it a lot, and ultimately we created a program, because basically when a boyfriend comes into a center, or a father comes in with his pregnant daughter to the center, in most cases it's the boyfriend, he's sitting out in the lobby while the girlfriend is being evaluated, and that appointment takes about 2 hours because there's a lot of testing that's involved and all kinds of stuff. And so he's frequently texting her, interrupting constantly. What's taking so long? I'm ready to leave. What are they saying? And she's getting the gospel presented to her, during that time. So it's spiritual warfare, right? I mean, it's just a constant disruption. So we were like, how can we neutralize this situation? How can we engage that man? And so what we came up with was a list of 12 guys for this specific center here at Hope in McKinney that are on call, okay? And one of the requirements, obviously, aside from being a solid Christian and very pro-life, is they need to work or live very close to the Hope Women's Center so they can respond quickly. So when a young man comes in, one of the nursing staff will come out and ask him while he's waiting, hey, would you be open to talking to another man? And about 75% of the time, he says yes. And so she'll go back to the office, and they'll send out a 911 group text to those 12 guys who are on call. And the prayer is that one of the 12 will be able to drop what they're doing and get there within 10 to 15 minutes to engage this young man. And so he comes in the back door, picks up his name tag, and it gets a quick 60-second rundown of the situation at hand, and then goes out in the lobby, introduces himself, and escorts him back to a consult room, and you got 30 to 45 minutes to engage this young man in conversation. And so this is still very new. We're less than 6 months into doing this. First couple months, we saw over 30 guys each per month, and it's been an amazing experience. But to answer your question, that's how I'm kind of using my story. And not all the guys have the same story I have, obviously, but God uses all our testimonies in different ways, and it's amazing to see these young men coming in who are hurt, broken, desperate. They feel like there's no hope. They feel like they're at the end of their rope, and they're walking through our door, right? I mean, it's low-hanging. We don't have to go out and find these guys. They're coming to us. I related a lot. I've done some prison ministry in my past, and it's a very similar mindset to these guys, in that a lot of them are broken, right? And how... what better time in life are they receptive to hearing about the gospel and God's grace than when they're broken, right? And so this is very similar to that, in my opinion. And so it's just been a unique tool to be able to share my story and use it for God's glory.
Amen. What would you tell some of the other wingmen that may be out there that your story resonates with them, but more so your ministry resonates with them? How can they get in touch with you? How can they get involved, or what information can you suggest they go to learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So as far as how to get involved, there are over 30 pregnancy resource centers in Dallas-Fort Worth alone. To my knowledge, there's only one other center that has a program that actively engages the man. So if you think about the missed opportunity that's happening at all the other centers, I think there's huge opportunity to advance God's kingdom in that regard. So for any guy that lives close to one of those centers, I think that would be a phenomenal way. And again, this is just infancy stages. I don't know what that looks like. That's just an idea, right? I mean, if guys are wanting to get involved, chances are there's a center close to them that they might be able to help lead an initiative like this.
What resonated with me when we had our initial conversation about this was this was something that God put on your heart, that you went out and you just did it. And this is kind of why I wanted to have these Wingmen conversations is, for guys that hear your story, may be motivated that, hey, Tyler's doing that, I can do that too. And it's just take the initiative. And this is what we're part of. Wingmen is, we're here to help you to accomplish the mission that God has given you to do and to execute. We're all given a set of, God has blessed us all with different strengths and different visions for what he's calling us to. And that's what we're about in Wingmen, is to encourage guys to discover and to find what that mission is, to find other guys that are like-minded that they can join with, because it's a lot easier to work with, a wingman by your side that's flying right beside you than it is to go solo.
Amen.
And you're going to be motivated, you're going to do it longer, you're going to be committed, and the success rate goes up. So this is what, I thank you for coming on and be willing to be transparent and to share your story, because it impacted me. And man, you inspire me to go out there and to be my best self and to do what God is calling me to do. And that's what I want to, hopefully this message resonates with the guys that are watching. Just do it, guys. God's calling you. Get off the bench and get into the game. All right, Tyler, thank you again for being on and being with us in our inaugural Wingman Conversations. So in closing, do you have any closing remarks or parting statements that you'd just like to share with the guys that's on your heart?
Sure. No. Thanks, Chad, for allowing me to share my testimony today. And I hope that my story was an encouragement to you, and I hope that it will motivate you to get in the game yourself. And we do this to glorify God, and so to His credit, He gets all the credit, and we're just being used by Him. So that's my encouragement to you guys, to stay the course, and appreciate your time.
Guys, thanks for watching and spending the time to watch Wingman Conversations. I hope this has inspired you. Our intent, again, is to encourage you to go out and to execute the mission that God has given you. To get your wingmen, get the guys in your element, to get out and to impact the community, to make a difference. That's what we're about. Until next time, have a great week, great month. Enjoy your corporates. Get engaged in the elements. Take care and God bless.